If you're a parent today, at some point someone else has held your baby. A grandmother, a daycare worker, a babysitter, an older sibling, and somewhere along the way, you've probably felt a flicker of guilt about that. Like you're supposed to be doing this alone, and needing help is a modern failure to keep up. Here's the problem with that guilt: no human mother in the entire history of our species was ever built to raise a child alone. We are, as far as the evidence shows, the only great ape that hands its babies to other people on purpose. Almost every other mammal on Earth runs on the same basic script. The mother carries the infant, feeds the infant, protects the infant, and does it almost entirely by herself. Among our closest relatives, chimpanzees and gorillas, a mother will not let another female so much as touch her newborn for weeks, sometimes longer. She keeps it pressed against her body and treats every approach as a potential threat. Humans do the opposite. From the first hours of life, a human infant gets passed around, held by people who aren't its mother, sometimes people it isn't even related to. That's not a modern convenience. It may be one of the oldest survival strategies our species ever developed. Anthropologist Sarah Blaffer Hrdy, in her book Mothers and Others, argues that this pattern, known as cooperative breeding, may be one of the most consequential differences between humans and other great apes. In most primate species, infant care is what biologists call exclusive: one mother, one infant, no exceptions. Hrdy's research points out that human infants are instead raised by what she calls alamathers, any caregiver besides the biological mother, including grandmothers, aunts, older siblings, and unrelated members of the group. Her argument is partly about energy. A human child is unusually expensive to raise. It's born more helpless than almost any other primate, stays dependent for close to 2 decades, and needs a level of sustained calories and attention that, by Hrdy's account, one mother foraging alone in an ancestral environment would have struggled to provide on her own. Especially while caring for an older sibling at the same time, cross-cultural fieldwork backs this up. Anthropologists Barry Hewlett and Michael Lamb, studying hunter-gatherer groups including the Aka and Ngandu of Central Africa and the Hadza of Tanzania, documented infants in these societies being held, fed, and looked after by multiple caregivers from the earliest days of life, not just the mother. In some of these groups, an infant may be held by a different person every few minutes throughout the day. This isn't just anecdotal. Anthropologist Courtney Meehan, who has spent years studying the Aka and Ngandu communities of the Central African Republic, measured how much direct care infants actually received from people besides their mothers, and then tracked how those children grew. Her research found that infants with more alamathers, more people sharing the work of holding, feeding, and watching them, tended to have better growth outcomes in their first years of life. More hands didn't just mean an easier mother. It appears to have meant a healthier child. This connects to work from anthropologist Kristen Hawkes on why human women, almost uniquely among mammals, live for decades after they stop being able to have children. Her grandmother hypothesis suggests that older women who could no longer reproduce still had every reason to keep helping, by provisioning and caring for their grandchildren, and that this help measurably improved those grandchildren's chances of survival. Put those pieces together, and a pattern emerges that Hrdy says is easy to miss because it's so normal to us. Humans appear to be the only great ape that evolved to expect help raising its young as the default setting, not a backup plan. Picture a camp in the ancestral past. A mother sets off to forage, carrying almost nothing. Her infant stays behind, resting against a grandmother's chest. An older sibling, maybe 7 or 8, watches over a toddler nearby, mimicking what the adults do. By midday, an aunt has taken a turn holding the infant while the grandmother prepares food. A man from the group, not the child's father, jokes with the toddler and hands it a piece of fruit. No single person in that camp is raising that child. The whole group is. Now picture the chimpanzee version of the same morning. The mother stays close to her infant every hour of the day, feeding it, carrying it, watching it, because in her world, letting go even briefly carries real risk and offers no expected benefit. There is no aunt waiting to take a turn. There is no version of putting the baby down and trusting someone else to pick it up. Here's where this gets interesting. Hrdy doesn't stop at survival math. She argues that being raised by many different caregivers, each with a different face, a different voice, a different way of holding you, may have pushed human infants to develop something no other great ape needed to the same degree: the ability to read what's going on in another person's mind. Quickly, from strangers, starting almost from birth, a chimpanzee infant only ever has to understand one adult closely, its mother. A human infant, by contrast, has to figure out, moment to moment, whether this new face approaching is safe, friendly, and willing to help. Hrdy suggests, and this part remains a hypothesis rather than settled fact, that this constant low-stakes practice reading unfamiliar adults may have laid some of the groundwork for what psychologists call theory of mind, the ability to model what someone else is thinking or feeling. Researchers studying shared intentionality, including work associated with psychologist Michael Tomasello, have proposed that this same capacity for reading and cooperating with other minds later became central to human language. Teaching, and large-scale cooperation, in other words, the very thing that looks like a weakness, a species that can't raise its young without help, may have been the pressure that built some of our most distinctly human social skills. We didn't get smart and then start cooperating. We may have gotten smart because we already had to cooperate, starting in the crib. None of this ended when humans stopped living in foraging camps, the grandmother who takes your kid on weekends, the daycare worker your toddler runs to hug, the older cousin who's basically a second parent, the neighbor who watches your baby for an hour so you can shower. They're not signs that something has gone wrong with modern parenting. They're the same alamathering system our species has been running for as long as we've been human, just wearing different clothes. The village just looks different now, spread across cities and school pickup lines instead of a single camp, but the need for extra hands never actually went away. The guilt so many parents feel about needing help was never really earned. Needing help isn't the exception to how humans raise children. As far as the evidence shows, it's the rule we were built around from the very beginning.